Hi, my name is Lauren and I froze my eggs this year. In this video, I'm going to recount my experience and share tips and some things that I learned along the way. Everything from those pesky injections and all of the financial stuff I am going to share with you. So if you're interested in potentially freezing your eggs, or maybe you've already started the process, please watch this video while I share my experience with you. Some things to note before I get into this video. I am not a medical professional. This is all just me recounting my own experience for you to possibly learn something from, but I am not giving any actual medical advice. I definitely suggest you talk to a doctor if you want something more like that. I also wanted to let you know that I froze my eggs in June, and today is Thanksgiving. I think that it's actually good that I waited to record this because it gave me some months after the procedure to be able to give you that information on what my hormones were doing after and how I recovered the months after the procedure. Okay, so let's take it back to my initial consultation. My initial consultation was on May 7th. The cost of the initial consultation was $275. That's how much I paid at my clinic. I'm sure it varies based on the clinic that you go to. I went in and met with the doctor. She gave me an overview of what the procedure was and the timeline, and I was able to ask her any questions that I had. And then we went into the exam room and she did an ultrasound. This is a vaginal ultrasound. During the ultrasound, she was able to see how many follicles I had approximately. I also did a blood test. So I had my initial consultation, and then the next day the doctor prescribed labs, and the labs had to be done on a certain day of my menstrual cycle. This is a pattern that you'll see a lot. Everything about this process just has to be done in a certain window of time. There were 7 specific things that they tested for. I'm not really sure about all of the medical stuff, so I'm just gonna put on the screen what labs they tested for. And then I spoke with my doctor after she got the results, and pretty much based on the results of the lab, I was cleared to begin this process. They also emailed me a sheet at the doctor's office with certain female fertility supplements that they required me to take. It's like 4 days later because that's how my life works. The clinic recommended some supplements for me to take. It was a prenatal, which I just took the ritual one, and then 1,000 milligrams a day of fish oil and 400 milligrams a day of CoQ10, 400 milligrams twice a day of CoQ10. I just took like the Costco one, and then this one is from Nature Made. They didn't really recommend any brands. They just kind of told me what strength of everything to take. And then additionally was recommended by a friend of mine who has been through this process multiple times to take this ritual fertility supplement. It's like a drink mix. It tastes terrible in my opinion, but I don't like flavored drink mixes to begin with. It's lemon flavored, so it's not like actually bad. She like swears by this, and so I took this as well, and then this is also twice a day. Another thing that my clinic did was they gave me a prescription for birth control pills. I had to wait for a cycle for the labs, and then the cycle after that I started the birth control pills. And they explained to me the reason why they did it, and I don't fully remember why, but it had something to do with like compacting my ovaries or something along the lines of that. I might be completely wrong, but like that's what I remember them saying to me. So we did that, and like I have to say, no one else that I've spoken to that has gone through this process has had to do birth control pills. I'm the only one that I've heard of, so I think it's just maybe patient specific or clinic specific. I realized while taking them that, because I haven't been on birth control pills in years, like since my 20s, and I'm 35, almost 36 years old. But when I started taking them again, I had like the worst acid reflux. And I remember in my 20s having really bad acid reflux and IBS and all of that. Those symptoms like started coming back, and I looked it up on Reddit. Apparently, yeah, like birth control pills do horrible things to your digestive tract, especially if you're prone to that, which I do have a family history of like Crohn's disease and gastrointestinal issues. So just something to keep in mind. But I had to take them. They wanted me on them for like 2 weeks, and I ended up staying on them for like closer to 3.5, because there were issues getting things scheduled with my clinic, but ideally they wanted me on them for like 2 weeks. In addition to that, they also recommended a probiotic, obviously because of all my gastrointestinal issues, and then a stool softener because this entire process can cause really bad constipation. It's person specific. I personally didn't deal with that issue, but apparently from other sources I've heard that it can be like really bad, and they want you to take stool softeners, not laxatives. I want to speak to the financial stuff of it all, because I think the two biggest things that I was concerned about was having to give myself an injection, which I'll get to, and the cost, because obviously this is a very expensive process. It's a lot, and you pay for a lot of different things, and your insurance typically doesn't cover this unless you have really good insurance. So I was completely out of pocket for this. My insurance did not cover this. And again, each clinic is specific depending on the clinic and where in the world you live. But in full transparency, the price that I paid for my cycle, which includes everything from after the consultation, all of the labs were also not covered by my insurance. I had to pay separately out of pocket to a third-party affiliate. Everything pretty much except for the medication, because the medication is separate. I paid $11,108. I paid a little bit extra. I think it was like between $1,000 and $2,000 extra to do FDA testing and screening, which is essentially just an extra blood test and checkup. So this is so in the future I have the option to go with a surrogate as opposed to carrying the pregnancy myself. Now, some stuff that I did that you may want to consider is the financial coordinator did give me a list of different grants and medication coupon programs and stuff like that. So I'll include some of the links down below, but then also I just did a quick Google search myself, and that's how I found a lot of the stuff. But I think the big thing is to find out what medications they're going to start you on, and then go directly to each medication, like their brand, their parent company's website, and you can find like different scholarships and stuff, or not scholarships, grants. Like Menopur, for example, has like a program that you can apply for to get like a discounted coupon, and then you would bring that to the fertility pharmacy, and instead of going through insurance that's not going to cover it, they would go through the coupon, and then you'd get that discounted rate. Another thing that I did that may be helpful is I looked up credit cards that would have really good offers for joining, because I knew that I was going to be spending this amount of money. Instead of paying it in cash or on an existing card that I already had, I opened up a travel card, and there was an offer where I would get like 70,000 points if I spent like $7,000 within the first 60 days. So I put it all on that, and then I got those points that I was able to use for future travel. Once I was financially cleared, I was able to consult with a nurse practitioner. From here on out, I pretty much only dealt with nurse practitioners. I only met with a doctor at the very, very beginning, and then obviously for the procedure itself, the doctor was there. But that in-between time, I did not see the doctor at all. I only saw nurse practitioners. So the nurse practitioner gave me my calendar, which is essentially just a list of dates of all the times you have to come into the office. Also, before I started, they sent me a bunch of videos to watch. I thought I was going to have like an in-person like nurse or doctor show me how to do injections because I was really nervous about doing the injections myself, which you'll see in the video. They did not. They sent me a video, and what was weird about the video is that it was animated. I didn't find that super helpful, but it's kind of the type of thing, honestly, that you just figure the F out yourself. The before was the most nerve-wracking part, but then once you actually do it and you do it for a few days, and like everyone says this, and I didn't believe them, but once you do it for a few days, you kind of just do it. When I started this process, I had been with a partner who was familiar with injections, and so I felt very comfortable with them being the one giving me the injections. But very, very quickly at the beginning of the process, me and my partner were no longer together, and so I felt a lot of panic in thinking that I was not going to be able to do it myself. And I was very clear with my doctor about how nervous I was about needles and injections. I only wanted to do subcutaneous injections, and so I said that to my doctor. Nothing intramuscular, like that's too much. And we'll get there when we talk later about the trigger injection, because that's really the only thing that you have to worry about intramuscular. There should be options in medication for everything just like subcutaneous, which is just under the skin and not in the muscle. So I took Menopur subcutaneously, and then I also took an oral capsule. I did start off on a very small amount of Menopur and then build up gradually. I think she was able to sense my hesitation with giving myself injections, but then I wasn't responding, so I had to get more, and then eventually had to introduce a second injection. So you'll see that in the footage. So I watched the videos, and I also got assigned a calendar, which essentially was just like the piece of paper with all of the dates on it and the upcoming appointment dates. So I had to go every other day or every 3 days to the clinic to be examined, to get an ultrasound, to get blood work, as they're monitoring the growth of all of the eggs in the follicles. So obviously you want to find a clinic that is either close by to where you live, or you want to make plans to be close by to the clinic, because you are going to have to check in with them several times a week for several weeks. And then I also wanted to talk about refills. They send a certain amount of medication to the fertility pharmacy. The fertility pharmacy is pretty much like, they understand how much to give you initially. But when it comes to refills, I was really, really confused with how much to get. So you will, just like you're going to the doctor's office several times a week, you may be going to the pharmacy several times a week, or multiple times a day. For me, sometimes was the case. Now, these medications, some of them are thousands of dollars, and it's really scary to be walking around with that amount of money in like your little pharmacy bag. I made the mistake after picking up my first prescription, which was like over $2,000, of leaving it at the library cafe and like not even realizing. And then they called me from the library, and I'm so glad that they called me and like I was able to pick it up, but like that could have turned out so badly. But after you pick up your initial dose, you pretty much have to monitor based on what you're prescribed, how long it's going to last, and what you're prescribed may change. So you may be picking up, take 200 units a day, and then, 3 days later you go for your ultrasound and they're like, okay, we want you to increase it to 300 units, and the day's supply on the bag doesn't now match what was prescribed to you. So you have to keep track of that yourself. You don't want to spend hundreds of dollars to get medication that you're not going to end up using. So it does make sense to just fill like a 1 or 2 day supply at a time, especially towards the end, and just go to the pharmacy multiple times a week to pick things up. So just like you want to live close by the clinic because you're going to be checking in, you want to make sure that you're nearby this pharmacy, wherever it is, as well. I want to show you guys now the process once I started the injections. So the first clip that I filmed was the first day after my first injection. I did not film my first injection. I did film myself giving injections, and I'm going to put it in If you are squeamish about that type of stuff and you don't want to see it, I can put a timestamp on the screen or down below in the description, just telling you which parts to skip. And that was probably the worst of my side effects, besides bruising. But we're gonna jump back a little to the day of my first injection.
I'm feeling really emotional right now. I don't know if it's like from the hormones or I'm on my period. Like, I don't know what I was expecting with the treatment. Like, I guess I thought it was gonna like stop my period right away, but like I still have a full on period. I've been like on and off, like nauseous all day. My appetite has been weird. I have a really bad migraine right now, and I just took 2 Tylenol because I just can't not function without taking something. Like, I think it's okay as long as it's not ibuprofen, like, or like a blood thinner, but I don't know. I'm sad. I don't even know if I want to like say the words out loud, but like I miss my ex. And I've been thinking about him a lot, especially the last couple of days, and like how he was supposed to be here for this treatment. Like, I went to my first appointment with him and I thought he was gonna be the one like giving me the shots, and now I'm kind of going through this alone. Like, I have some really supportive friends, but like it's not really the same.
We have to do this shot. It's day 2. I didn't show you yesterday for day 1. One, because I was like nervous, and then I literally messed it up within like 2 seconds.
I decided to do a voiceover for this part because I sound very congested and all over the place. So I'm just getting my injection ready, taking out all of the supplies that they gave me at the pharmacy. They literally give you everything that you need at the pharmacy, including the sharps container, all of the medications and needles and everything that you need. So I'm just taking it all out right now, setting it up. And I really only felt sick the first day and a half after my first injection. And while part of it is probably a reaction to the medication being introduced into my body, like I mentioned, I also started the injection the second day of my period, and though I thought it was going to immediately stop, it didn't. I still had a regular period, so that's probably also just the result of having a bad period. But they gave me Menopur, and they gave me a giant mixing needle for the vials, but they also gave me this thing that I'm taking out right now. It's called a Q cap, and you just snap it into the top of the vial, just like that, and it makes it very easy to pull. You take sodium chloride, that's the first vial that you'll see, and I'm going to take off the big needle that came with it and just put it into my sharps container. I don't need it. The needle that you actually inject into your body, they give you, is a lot smaller and a lot thinner. So I'm pulling it up to the proper dispensing, like how much I'm supposed to take, and then you push the air after you screw on to the Q cap. You push that amount of air into the vial, and then you flip it over, and then that helps get the right amount of solution into your vial. And then I'm going to remove that whole thing, like leave the Q cap screwed onto the syringe, and then place that into my first vial of medication. And then I am reconstituting the medication with that original amount of sodium chloride. And that initial amount that I drew up is going to be enough for all the vials. So I'm reconstituting that and then drawing up that entire vial of reconstituted medication and then putting that into the next vial. I think on this first week, I only had to take 2 vials of medication. By the end, I was taking 4. So, and then a second injection on top of that. So this is fairly simple compared to future nights, but I'm just reconstituting the medication, and then once I have all of the full amount, mixing it around to make sure all the powder is absorbed, I draw it up into this syringe, and then I'm going to take the Q cap off completely, which you'll see in a second. And then I'm going to attach that smaller needle that they provided me. So you want to push out any additional air because you don't want to inject air into your body. And then attach the small needle. Like so, and it has a cap on it. And then I'm just making sure all the air is out. And now we're going to prep for the injection. I'm just showing you my bruise from the first night's injection, and then I'm just using a little ice roller. I saw a girl in a YouTube video using it. I have no idea if it helped or not. If anything, it numbed the area a little bit. I'm using an alcohol prep pad to disinfect the area, and then after a little bit of hesitation and a moment of panic, I pinch the skin. One more second of hesitation, and then we're injecting, and there it is. That is the process of how I gave myself my injections, and it's a little bit scary. Sometimes you bleed a little, but it's good. That this is now balancing on a sharps container, but I wanted to check in with you guys. I've been doing my shots as normal for the last couple of days. I forgot to record one of the days, but for the most part I've been recording it. I had my first follow-up today at the doctor. The shots have been going well, but after my vaginal ultrasound and like my labs, they called me a couple of hours ago and they told me that they wanted me to do an extra dose. So instead of doing 2 vials of the Menopur, I'm doing 3 vials of Menopur. It's just about time for my dose. Right now I think they said they saw 11 on one side and 13 on the other, which is good, and that the biggest one is about, I think, 8 millimeters. I'm definitely feeling a lot better than I was that first day when I felt like I had a migraine and I was nauseous, and I don't know if that was from the medication or if it was just like a regular period symptom, because I do get migraines on my period and I didn't realize it was gonna be like just like a regular period. Now I'm like a bit nervous about doing the extra vial tonight and seeing if it's gonna give me like any adverse effects, but we will find out. I thought I'd give you guys a little update. It's like 2 in the afternoon, and besides managing to feed myself breakfast and lunch, I've done nothing today. I'm feeling very fatigued. It's towards the end of my cycle. Like, I am anticipating giving myself the trigger shot either tomorrow or Saturday, maybe. And today is Thursday, so I haven't recorded an update in a while, but I wanted to come on here just like I'm so fatigued, and like my boobs are sore and my stomach's sore and I'm bloated. So I'm starting to feel mild symptoms. I don't think it's anything unbearable, but it's definitely something that I'm like aware of. I started giving myself a second injection 3 days ago. So I went in for my regular appointment every Monday, Wednesday, Friday. I go in, they monitor me, they do a vaginal ultrasound, they take some blood, I go home. The nurse practitioner calls me a couple of hours later after the doctor reviewed my information, and they give me the next set of instructions. So 3 days ago, which was after my appointment on Monday, the doctor called and told me that they're going to add, is it Gonerol, whatever, a second medication that I had to inject. I haven't been showing you guys the injections because when I was amped up from 2 to 3 to 4 vials of the Menopur, I had my roommate start helping me, and then once I started doing the 2 injections, I have been injecting it myself, but like I just haven't been filming. I don't really know what else to say. I just felt like I needed to like tell you guys what's going on. I'm really sweaty. I'm assuming it has to do with all of the medication and this and everything. That's that's my little update. Yeah. We made it to my last injection. Besides the trigger injection, I had my appointment yesterday, Friday, and today's Saturday, obviously. Then I'm taking my trigger injection technically Sunday morning. It's at 1 a.m. So I'm gonna have to either stay up or wake up and give myself 2 injections. Both of them are subcutaneous. They wanted to make one of them intramuscular, and I'm like, hell no, not happening. I'm not waking up at 1 in the morning and giving myself an intramuscular injection. Like, that's just not happening. How am I feeling? Like, extremely fatigued, and my boobs are sore, and my stomach is bloated, and I'm just ready to be over this whole experience. And I'm definitely going to wrap up when I feel better and go more into detail. My egg retrieval is scheduled for Monday at noon. I have to be there at 11 a.m. I'm just excited that this whole thing is gonna be over with. As far as like if I'm glad I did it or not, I don't know yet. I think it really depends on how many eggs they get, to be honest. It's like not seeming like as many as I thought initially. So I'm kind of bummed, but I'm also just really tired and foggy. I will say, like, I did this because I had to do it. Like, it's not like super excruciating, like unbearable, this whole process, procedure, whatever, at least so far. But like, obviously it's not enjoyable. And so like, I'm not trying to scare anyone away from doing it. I'm just saying, like, I think it's something that you know going into it. Like, it's not going to be fun, and you just do it because you have to, but obviously it could be worse. So that's my update for you. I'm gonna turn off the camera, give myself my last injection, and then I'm just trying to like chill out for the next couple of days. I have to wake up at 1 a.m. to do the trigger injections, and we'll take it from there, I guess.
It's the day after my procedure, and I wanted to show you the final outcome. The bruises are mostly from the trigger injection. All the other ones have healed. I've been using like a bruise cream with arnica in it. I'm still bloated, but they said that that should go down within a couple of days. I have my like little clip in. I'm about to get dressed. I have mild to moderate cramping on and off, and other than that, I'm doing okay, and I will update you more when I have more to update. For now, hanging in.
So that brings us back to present day, and I wanted to start by backtracking a little bit so that I can talk a little bit more in depth about my day of procedure. I can probably look this information up, but I'm not going to. So let's just say my procedure was at 11 and I had to be there like an hour beforehand for prep. So my ride, which was my roommate, dropped me off. You can't drive home from this surgery because it involves anesthesia. I was dropped off and then picked up, and they won't release you without your caretaker there as well. Like, you can't just call an Uber. You need someone to release you and pick you up and take you home to make sure that you're cared for. So that was my roommate, and she dropped me off, and she had to fill out like a sign a form saying that she was going to come back, and then she went back home. And I waited out in the waiting room until they were ready to take me back. When I went back there, it was like, what is it called? Like when there's just like a bunch of beds lined up and then there's like different curtains. So like there was someone who was, maybe they came out of surgery a half hour ago, and then someone who was about to go into surgery, and then me. Give me all of the stuff to change into. I have to take off all my clothes, put it in a bag, and then change into like the gown and all of that. And then prior to the procedure, they had prescribed me 2 medications, three, I think, the stool softener, the extra strength Tylenol, and the anti-nausea medication. And that was all for after the procedure. But for the anti-nausea medication specifically, they had me bring that to the procedure. It was just for 1 pill. And then when I got there and I changed, they also instructed me to take that. Then they gave me a bed in the triage area, and I waited. And the nurse would come in and out, and they put an IV line in me. Yeah, I'm like trying to remember exactly what happened. And like, it's like any other surgery. It's like any other surgery, really. So like, I was waiting there for a while until they were ready, and then the nurse was available to put the line in me. I needed IV, obviously, for the anesthesia and to make sure I'm getting enough fluids and all of that stuff. I was waiting quite a while. Like, I think the last surgery was running late, or I needed to get cleared in the lab for something. I'm not really sure exactly what it was. They had me pee in a cup too. Oh my God. Okay. I'm all over the place. I wanted to share my egg retrieval like surgery experience, but like I don't remember it, and I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that I was obviously nervous coming in, and then on the way out I was coming out of anesthesia, so I was foggy. And I feel like that's every procedure that I've ever had. It's just like any other minor outpatient procedure that you ever have. I didn't feel anything. Honestly, there's not really much to say about the surgery itself. And then when I was awake enough, they called my roommate. She came, she picked me up, and then I went home. I think I mentioned this in the vlog clip, but I had some minor cramping for a few hours after the surgery, but nothing bad. And then some spotting. But other than that, that was it in terms of like physical symptoms. What was affecting me the most was like the emotional symptoms after. I have PMDD and certain hormonal issues and hormonal imbalances, and so that all comes into effect when it comes to like my mood, especially with things like this that alter my hormone levels. The few weeks after, I did feel a little bit foggy and tired and a little bit more irritable, a little bit sadder, but it was also something that I was hyper aware was going to happen prior. So I think going in knowing that made it less bad. All in all, when I came out of the surgery, the doctor did inform me that they collected 14 eggs, which is amazing and not what I was expecting at all, because my last appointment a few days prior, they made it seem like I was not going to get that many eggs. I think they said like 5, and then there were 14 eggs, and all 14 were mature and frozen. So I currently have 14 eggs, and I'm really pleased about that. A few weeks after the procedure, you get your first period, which is, they call it a fake period, and it's really just a final release of all the hormones. And that's how I saw it described on the internet, and that's how it felt. Where like when I got my period, I think I cried. Like I just felt very, very hyper emotional, and it didn't feel like a real period, and I don't know how to explain that. It was just very light, and I didn't really have cramping. I didn't really bleed for very long, but it was like you felt your hormones just like the levels go from like elevated to like not so elevated. And then the month after that, I had my first real period, which it threw my cycle off like a week or two. So like let's say 3 weeks after the procedure, I had the fake period. Then like 5 or 6 weeks after that, I had my real period. I don't know why I'm doing air quotes for real period, like my real period. That's when I started to really start to feel like I was getting back to normal. I think by period 2 or 3, I was like 100% just myself again, and all the bruising had subsided. Any initial bloating, that's what really happened during the fake period. Like your bloating is still there until you get that fake period, and then when everything releases, I feel like you de-bloat a lot, or at least that's what I experienced. All in all, it was a lot, but I think for me it felt worth it for just a little bit more peace of mind. That was my experience. I hope that you found this helpful, and if you are on the egg freezing journey yourself, I wish you a lot of luck. Stay strong, and I will see you guys in a future video.